Do you need a pointer? If you need the pointer, it's just there. Okay, perfect. So the stage is yours.
Hello everyone, this is James from DFG. So let me do a quick introduction about myself and our fund. So I established this investment firm back to 2015, focused on the investment in the crypto space. We start with our own money, so we don't raise any outside LP, so make it more flexible. So we'll be more like a family office, but operating in a VC ways. So we invest into a bunch of startups in their first 2-3 years, like Circle, Ajax, Brave, Bezos, in various stage. So right now, a lot of them become unicorn. And the real things make me exciting is the investment into Polkadot start from 2017, 2018. This is really the things we see can potentially change the future of the infrastructure of blockchain, right? So we decide to make the investment there, and we continue making investment in 2019, and after DOT got listed in 2020, we also buy DOT on the secondary market. Start from there, we start seeing a very big, growing ecosystem about Polkadot. So we invest into more than 50 different projects in the Polkadot ecosystem, including the EVMs like Moving, Allstars, and a few other good ones also, in the ecosystem. So we continue to supporting them. Right now, our strategy is keep a close eye on the Polkadot ecosystem, see what kind of things is exciting here. So we will continue give our support to them. I guess there's a few things I want to talk about in Polkadot space, because people have really different opinions about Polkadot these days. I guess there's a few things has to be solved in the Polkadot space. So I can probably share a little bit about my thoughts here. The first I will say is about massive adoption, because we see Polkadot ecosystem growing pretty quickly in 2019, 2020. But start from the recent probably 2 years, there's few projects coming into the space, and especially for new crypto innovative project, right? So this is actually one of the hurdle here, because there are so many layer 1 protocols, so many infrastructure, but the problem is really about the application here. So if we can solve the problem of massive adoption through one killer app, then Polkadot will be much better in the next bull run. So that's, I think, one of the most important things. The second is about make it easy for developer to enter into the space, because Rust is a language every developer knows it's not an easy language to learn, and the substrate is great, but the barrier for entering into the substrate framework, that's also very hard. I think probably Cosmos is much easier, and the Solana Ethereum is also much easier than Polkadot. But once learning about substrate and you can use it, then it makes you very strong. So I think Polkadot still have good technology, but how to lower the barrier for developer to move into the space is actually the second problem we need to solve. The third is more about the token economy, because as far as everyone knows, we have like a 15% staking reward a year for DOT if you stake your DOT. And the inflation is potentially somewhere like less than 9%. This is actually higher than most of the protocol in the space. So it actually creating the short-term momentum in giving incentive for people to stake their DAO. But in the long term, because we're creating so many tokens, then it actually hurt us a little bit on the secondary market. So I think that's also a problem. Kind of, I think Polkadot community need to consider is what kind of token matrix can help us be more sustainable and healthy in the long term, right? So I think that's a few thoughts about Polkadot from my perspective. There's tons of good things, happen in the Polkadot space that people don't know. We need to do good marketing stuff. We need to let everyone knows about it. But I think, once we can solve the problem as well as kind of just spreading all the good news to the people outside the Polkadot ecosystem, I'm pretty sure Polkadot will still have a very bright future in the next bull run. Thanks.
Okay, then I'll take over from here. I don't know, I prepared some slides. Let's see if this works. Oh, there we go. So maybe I can stand at the panel. Okay. Maybe I'll stay here if the string isn't long enough. All right, so my name is Max Riebal. I'm the co-founder of Harbor Industrial Capital, which is a Polkadot-focused VC fund, but often I like to think of it more as a governance fund, right? So it's a mixture between governance and VC, and like what I want to talk about here today is these two things merging together. Maybe a little bit of background, like why are we doing this? So I'm a Polkadot private sale investor myself, and then I teamed up with like a friend of mine who is also like a large DOT holder, with the idea that if we jointly manage those DOT, we can actually really change something in the ecosystem, right? So it's a bit like think of like in the traditional world, think of it as like an activist investor, right? That's kind of what we're doing here. We're not passively like holding and hoping that things go well, but it's a very active involvement that we have with the governance of Polkadot as a whole, and with like specific projects that we support. Okay, right. So this is a very simplified graph here. What do projects in the Polkadot space, or arguably in any crypto space, really need from VCs, right? Usually the number one answer is money, right? Like everyone needs money, which is true, right? Obviously you need money to build your runway, to pay your developers, to rent an office, to use servers. But then one of the more important aspects that any startup in the crypto space needs, and okay, let's say specifically in the Polkadot space, is block space, right? And we know block space nowadays mainly in the form of the parachain leases. So this is the idea. You win an auction, you get like a lease for usually 2 years, in which you have full access to the Polkadot relay chain and to all the block space that it provides, right? So this is a very important resource for anyone building on top of Polkadot. And maybe some of you guys were in Copenhagen like a few weeks ago when Gavin gave his presentation, where he says that maybe the parachain lease system is going to evolve a little bit, and I think that is exactly what's going to happen, right? Like currently you have this very rigid model where you have like a parachain lease for a certain period of time, and it's either you're in or you're out, right? It's not very flexible, right? With para threads, right, and like a more flexible block space model, I think a lot of people are going to find it easier to come onto Polkadot. And for us, this is a good thing. This is something that we welcome. But I think there will still be like a market for trading block space against equity, right? So this is kind of this idea, right? Like, traditional VC is like, okay, give me money and I'll give you some shares, right? That's, what usually happens. Block space being such an important resource, we figured that there is also a way to kind of cut short through that and directly offer block space for equity, right? That is kind of what we're focusing on here. So this is, without going into the details, but that's like our red meat, right? This is like what we're doing. Like these are just some random snapshots of the last 4 batches of auctions. And you can see like the different bidding strategies. So this is a Polkadot audience here, so I assume you guys kind of know what this is, so I'm not going to explain it from scratch. But I mean, the one thing that I would say is you see there are like, usually there are some jumps, right? Usually like, the line goes flat and then there's a jump and then it like plateaus or then it continues building a little bit. And this is called like the Dutch candle auctions, right? Where you have like a random snapshot. And what we found is that a lot of projects who are building on Polkadot, they want to have the community engaged, right? And that's why it's called a crowd loan. But by and large, people find it difficult to, predict the outcomes here, right? To get like, it's hard to plan around it because these auctions tend to be a bit quite unpredictable how they ultimately turn out. And that's where we kind of thought there is an opportunity for us to come in and support some interesting projects, right? And then bid on their behalf with a more substantial amount of DOT. And we obviously like talk with them, and I guess this here is also like an open invitation to anyone of you guys here who are building and who are planning to win a parachain auction and who are not sure if they have enough DOT in either their own treasury or like in the they're not sure if like the total community support that they have within the space is sufficient, right? It's not an either or, in my opinion, right? It's not like, oh, either you go with us or you go with the community. We usually like to work together, right? It's we can be like sort of a cornerstone investor. Think about it this way, like a cornerstone, like pick like some of those, where you see like a quick jump, right? Oftentimes that's actually been us, right? And then from there you can keep on building the support. Also from the retail perspective, right? If someone, if you have a retail guy coming in and he sees like your project has like 5 DOT support, why bother like putting your DOT there? Doesn't really like, there's a very low chance of actually winning. But if the project is already in the lead or close to the lead, retail support is much more likely to actually materialize. Yeah, and so the first thing is parachain auctions. The second thing is open governance, right? And as you all know, like open governance is live and it's happening, and there are some, really interesting proposals going on. This is just one origin, right? I just picked the big spender origin, ability to spend over $1 million. And these lines are quite interesting, right? I think, I really like the system. I think it's a very well thought through model, right? Where you have like the approval and the support. Approval starting at 100%, going down to 50, right? And then the support level starting at 50 as well, and then declining to some very low levels. So here, like towards the end of this, of the green curve, right? It goes very close to 0, right? I think here we're talking about like 0.1% of total support that is required. This is very low if you think about it. Like think of if you're living in a democracy, like whatever, here in France or anywhere, like imagine you only had a turnout of 0.1%, right? Would anybody say like this is a representative election, right? If President Macron like wins with like 0.1%, like obviously that's not a democracy. So this is what kind of brought me to this next idea, right? That what if we lived in a democracy but nobody bothers to vote? And it's not that nobody bothers to vote, but in OpenGov, in Polkadot, like turnout tends to be very low, right? And this is, in my opinion, like somebody who believes in OpenGov and who thinks that this is a great idea, it's a shame, right? Like we want more people to actually vote in OpenGov. Like that's, to have a higher turnout because that's what leads to better decision. That's more representative. And so one of the things we've been thinking about is like, how can we increase the voter turnout? And there are different ways to think about it. I'm not saying that I've got the only correct model, but I guess it's one approach. I'm thinking of it in terms of like this collective action problem, because everyone here in this room, I guess, is deep in Polkadot, and you enjoy you like reading about it, you like spending time, reviewing all the proposals that are out there. But I guess like the average retail user doesn't have the time, right? That's why I'm calling it a collective action problem. A lot of people, they bought Dot at some point, they generally believe in the ecosystem, but to really sit down and review all those proposals that are coming online in OpenGov, it's a full-time job. Nobody can reasonably be expected to make an informed opinion if they only hold, I don't know, 10 Dot or even 100 Dot, right? It takes a lot of time, right? And people have another job, they do something else. So they cannot really be, unless they're obviously you have some people who are really passionate about it, who are time, but that's not your average user, right? Or your average Dot holder. Okay, so and this leads us to the idea of delegation. Now, delegation is something that already exists in OpenGov. Here is a screenshot of the delegations dashboard. And I think this goes in the right direction, right? It's a good thing that people are able to delegate their vote to somebody else who then votes on their behalf, right? It's kind of the idea of a representative democracy. The citizens of a country, right, they don't vote on individual laws either. They vote for a party, and then the party votes in parliament for a certain proposal or against it, right? And people delegate their vote to whoever they like, whoever they feel comfortable with, whoever they think is a good representative of their vote. The issue here is that if you delegate through the staking dashboard, right, it's great. You can keep the flexibility, right? You have the, however, you can unstake, you can redelegate anytime, but you don't get any rewards from it. And this is kind of where we thought, for us, it's a good thing to get the vote, right? So we should be able to reward the people for delegating their vote to us. And that's kind of, in this fund that we're running, this is kind of what we're proposing here, right? To delegate the vote to us and get paid, right? And get rewarded. So this is, a bit of an overly complicated flowchart, but what it really means is our investors, our LPs, in this fund, it's a Cayman fund, right? They usually already hold Dot, right? We're sitting here in the middle, right? It's our HIC Cayman fund, and they delegate to us, right? And then we participate in either the parachain auctions or OpenGov, right? Both are possible in theory. We're doing both. But we get something out of it, right? From the parachain auctions, you get rewarded, right? And it's really everything is a negotiation in life. That's an old saying. So when supporting a parachain, it's not like a take it or leave it. You can always ask oh, how about this? How about that? Right? But one way or another, we're gonna get some rewards out of it, and we don't want to keep those rewards for ourselves, but we want to distribute them to the people who trusted us, so to speak, right? Who gave us their vote, who delegated to us. So that's why there's also a flowchart in the opposite direction, right? Where those various project tokens go back into our HIC fund, we convert them back into Dot, and then they flow back to our LPs, right? So last slide, I think, why not do it myself? I think it really goes back to this collective action problem, right? I always like to emphasize OpenGov is called OpenGov for a reason, right? It's because anyone can participate. Any dot holder, if you hold 1.5 dot, you can participate, and we encourage everybody to participate. But running this fund now for like 1.5 years, I have realized that even some of the more sophisticated holders of DOT don't necessarily have the time to review every single proposal, to look at every single parachain that is coming up for an auction. And therefore, for them, it also makes sense to delegate their vote with their DOT. They're still going to get their DOT back, but they can also move something forward in the ecosystem. So that's why I split it into like time and money. That's it. That's the end of my presentation. So this is me. This is my co-founder, Mario. We're based in Hong Kong. Mario couldn't make it because he's in Hong Kong at the moment. Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna leave it here, and I welcome any questions from the audience.
Perfect. If you have any questions.